Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of Hilaal Live. I'm your host, Luqmaan Shadrach. Thanks for joining us on Channel 347. It's Mental Health Monday, and back in studio, we do have clinical psychologist Brother Rafiq Lockhat. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah for coming in, and very important topic this week. We do know that we've just in the midst of the 16 days for activism against gender-based violence. We know that it plagues all our communities, and we do know that some of the horrifying stats which we're going to get in very shortly. But for those that don't know too much about GBV, when it was launched, why it was launched, how it was launched, maybe give some perspective in terms of what was the need to implement a campaign like this in South Africa.
I know it does sound bizarre that we should have a particular period focus to gender-based violence, but I think one needs campaigns.
Sure.
Right, but it needs to be sustained. It doesn't always, but this is a start. It's like a springboard, and hopefully campaigns then continue to run. So I think part of it was let's use this time to highlight, put resources, money, NGOs, government, to then make it a particular focus on gender-based violence.
Yeah.
So
it's vital, and like you said, it's sad that we have to implement a campaign like this, but it reached levels that were very, very hard to monitor, control, and the ripple effect that it had. But maybe give us a idea on the statistics around femicide in our country.
So we know that South Africa has 5 times the global average.
Sure.
I'll say that again. South Africa has 5 times the global average of femicide.
Staggering.
And we know that in South Africa, 2022 statistics, if I remember correctly, 60% of women killed were killed by an intimate partner.
Sure.
So 6 out of 10 women murdered in South Africa were murdered by an intimate partner. Not random, strange person. I know we think that.
Yeah.
But the statistics give us another thing, and I actually think that's underreported to some extent.
Right.
So I think that's our starting point. Is 6 out of 10 women in South Africa killed by an intimate partner, and not strangers, and we have 5 times the global average.
Sure.
Something is very wrong.
So, absolutely, I agree with you. One of the other staggering statistics that comes out is that even during this campaign, there's such an increase on GBV while the campaign is highlighted and all over our media, newspapers, radio, television, like we do now as well, and we still have a staggering amount of gender-based violence. And it's not just women. We extend that to children as well, and we saw that increase over COVID to a large point because people were sort of stuck at home, and it exacerbated the condition.
It did. And people couldn't go out. There was heightened frustrations with being locked in. There were job losses, all kinds of things, and then being that confined. I mean, even average families were getting frustrated with each other. And if you're in a confined space, a big house, you can wander off. But the average South African isn't in a big house.
Correct.
And I think that confined space combined with maybe difficulty getting cigarettes, which people incorrectly use as an anxiety medicine, or alcohol, the heightened levels of frustration.
Yeah.
Of course, frustration is not the only reason that this happens.
Are we winning the war, though? I mean, is there a shift in the right direction that these campaigns have highlighted?
To my knowledge, last year the stats went up.
Wow.
So it doesn't appear that we're winning the war on gender-based violence. We need to get like a sociologist in to help us with that. But I know that the rates are not coming down.
Yeah. If you have any questions, queries, you're welcome to email us at luqmaan@hilaal.tv and share your concerns, questions around today's topic as well, and we'll address that with Rafiq Lockhat. Rafiq, in your opinion, what are some of the myths surrounding GBV?
Right, thanks. Great question. So firstly, when we're generalizing, as always in a conversation like this, so there are men who are also victims of GBV,
right?
Like some women, but small percentage. But I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
Because we'll get a call to say, but I'm a man. Why? So it's true that there are men who are victims of GBV, but in terms of percentages wise, it's small, but it exists.
Right.
So the first thing often, because one hears judgments quite a lot, so the first thing is that it can't be that bad because she stays.
Mm. Mm.
That's first. That doesn't take into account any of the material conditions of why the woman stays. Maybe she's got many children, she's got no job, she has no money. Maybe when she got married, the parents said, well, if you marry that guy and then never put your foot back there again, and then sometimes people then feel trapped. So that's the one myth. I mean, we'll cover a few. The other one is that it only happens to poor and uneducated women. Only poor and uneducated women
Big misconception.
are victims of GBV. That's not true. In my practice, particularly, and other colleagues' practices, I often see highly intelligent, highly wealthy CEO-type women who are then trapped in very abusive marriages or relationships. And they feel an even deeper sense of shame because they have the resources to end the relationship. And I'll talk about the difference between intellectually knowing and emotionally being unable to. So they feel even more shame because they read articles that say, you know, if you've got resources, you can leave, but they're unable to. So that's another myth. That's only poor and uneducated women. The third one is that if she's being beaten and she doesn't leave, she must like it. I don't know if you, but nobody I know likes getting beaten.
Of course, yeah.
Right. The other myth is that children are not affected. Right? That's also not true. And a lot of times people think the children are fast asleep. They're not. Their eyes are closed, but they're listening to everything. The most terrifying thing is a little child to hear their mother being beaten. The sense of helplessness you feel. And a lot of times parents argue about the children.
Yeah.
Okay, for whatever reason, the mother's trying to protect the child, dad might be drunk or drugged up or whatever it is. And then the child believes that mommy got beaten because of me. Then they grow up with that enormous, and I see this later on when they come as adults for therapy, enormous sense of guilt and shame that, you know, my mother got beaten up for me. And then we have to help them understand it's not true. It was happening long before you came along.
Right.
There are quite a few. Oh yes, right. That person is staying because they like it. We cover that.
Right.
But people can't leave for many reasons. Also, if you look at the femicide rate, 60% of women killed by an intimate partner. The threat is real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So you can't just say, oh, I'll leave him. Because we know in this country, some men, large percentage of men, hunt their women down and kill them. And a lot of times they kill themselves also after that.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, if I can't have you, nobody else can. So we can't deny that women get killed in South Africa when they try to end relationships. People often say, oh, but it's simple, just get an interdict.
But it's not so easy.
It's not so easy because interdicts are ignored.
Correct. In the past, you could go to a police station and you would get the interdict from there. Now it's a whole procedure where you've got to go through the courts system.
It's a whole procedure, right? And also, look, the police are being educated, but we're really far behind in terms of actually safety for women.
Are there campaigns like this around the world? Are other countries as affected as we are?
There are other countries affected. So let's call it the scourge. Right? That's a word. It's really worldwide.
Yeah.
Okay, but for some reason, ours is 5 times the world average now. Possible. It's due to the legacy of apartheid. It's also 30 years on now. So things should be shifting. And maybe we should get a sociologist on to give us a global understanding of that. But that's what we know.
Yeah.
So,
But I think, like you said, more organizations banding together to alleviate what is happening. And I think create that awareness from a young age already, in a boy child or a girl child for that matter, so that the cycle doesn't replicate. Should more of this be done? I mean, is this where we should be focusing?
Absolutely. We should be focusing on educating boys and girls about what's okay, what's not okay. I got an email today, actually oddly enough, from one of my patients, and I said to her, and she sent emails saying, I do have a memory I want to talk about, and it's when my ex-husband now made the children sit and said, watch how you handle the problematic woman, and then proceeded to scream at her, shout at her, and beat her up. So he made it like a stage, like a front row stage for them.
Wow.
Now there's a few impacts from that. One is that the boy child then thinks, oh, okay.
This is okay.
Well, you know, dad, remember in this family, dad is the most powerful role model for the boy.
Yeah.
Mum for the girl. So the boy thinks, and dad said, sit here and watch. This is how you deal with the problem woman. Proceeded to then berate her and then hit her in front of the kid.
Sure.
That's 5-star psychopath. But,
absolutely.
But a little child doesn't know that. He thinks, okay, now if that continues for a long period of time, it then becomes normative. And for the young boy growing up, that becomes the norm.
Absolutely. We're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation around GBV and highlighting various stats, but also how we can all do our bit to alleviate some of these statistics, horrifying statistics that we often see in the media and various parts of our social circles as well. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching us on Hilaal Live. We'll be back after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. It's Mental Health Monday. We have clinical psychologist Rafiq Lockhat in the studio chatting to us about a very important topic that affects every single community in South Africa and most parts of the world as well. We're talking about GBV. Rafiq, thanks so much for coming in once again and sharing such insightful, information around this very plaguing topic. Before the break, we chatted about some of the myths around GBV, and there were a few more I think we wanted to share as well. What are those?
There's some very important ones. So the ones that you often hear about is that she provoked me.
Right? That's an excuse, right? It's a
right,
cop
but it's
out.
very common. Right? She provoked me, and so I couldn't help myself. So in case of that, I say to the man, fair enough, start there. So she made you angry, yes? Okay. And then you hit her, yes. Does your boss make you angry? Oh, sometimes. I said, no. I can't hit your boss. No, I can't hit my boss. I'll get fired.
Right.
Or I can't hit my colleague at work, even though they drive me insane. I hold back. I say, no, hang on, let me get this straight. So you're furious with your boss, but you don't hit your boss, him or her, because she'll get fired. But the woman that you're supposed to love, you're okay hitting her because she made you angry. And then for some people, the penny does drop. And they stop. And I say, so what you're saying is, I can hit her because I can't hit my boss because I can't. So you somehow learn control at work, but you're unable to learn control at home. And for some people, that does shift something. They look like, In others, it doesn't happen. Yeah. So that's an important one. So what that means is that, because almost anything you can do can provoke your spouse. The food is too cold, the food got too much salt, too little salt, you bang the door, whatever. The kids. So that's a really bad argument that people use, that I was provoked. And when I see community, people say, I drink alcohol because of her. So I said, no, she drives me crazy. I said, let me get this straight. She holds you down, ties you up, and pours the drink down your throat. No, I drink. I say, okay, so you get upset, but you then choose to drink. You could do something else.
Right.
You could go for a run. You could eat an apple. You could do other things. But now you're saying you drink because of her, as if she pours it down your throat. And then some guys stop and they think about that a little bit. The other important one is that that strong women don't get abused. Strong meaning psychologically or physically strong. That's not true. Not true at all. Okay, all women get abused. So that isn't factually correct. Also, that if you're strong, you won't get abused. You can. The other important one is that you can easily see somebody who's abused.
Oh no,
that's not true.
Yeah, that's not true.
That it's obvious. The woman will be nervous
and more
shaking.
importantly, that it's only physical.
It is only physical. It's not only physical. Also, some men are smart. They hit you on the body.
Right.
They don't. I mean, usually you see a blue eye, and then the excuses are bumped into the shower, and they wear sunglasses. Some men are smart. They know where to hit. they hit underneath and then you can't see it. So it's not true that abuse, GBV, is only physical violence. It can be sexual violence, it can be emotional violence, it can be psychological torture in one way like that. So there are many ways that abuse can happen.
Yeah.
And I think the general myth that it's always physical violence is not true.
Yeah.
And the other myth that you can easily tell somebody who is an abused woman. You can't.
Sure. So thanks for sharing that. I mean, because this gives our audience a better perspective on what to be more aware of and you know, in their surroundings, colleagues, friends, family, things like that. But you chat about something called trauma bonding.
Right.
Tell us more. That sounds very intriguing, and I'm sure our audience would appreciate.
Sure. So it's a common term that people use. To make it simple, it refers to the unhealthy relationship that an abused person has with an abuser.
Okay. All right.
Okay. There's an unhealthy attachment that they have to the person.
Okay.
And they stay attached for many reasons. So remember, we cleared up, it's not because they like getting abused.
Yeah.
There are many different ways to understand it. So one of the simplest ways to understand it is when people gamble and they do the one-arm thing. Okay?
Right.
Now, how does it work psychologically? You put a coin in, nothing happens. Oh, then it pays out. Then you get excited because there's a payout. And then you put more coins in and it extends the period for nothing and then it pays out. Right. So that is a psychological method to keep you, if you're gambling, keeps you gambling there. Same thing with an abuser. Right? You're nice for a little while and then you revert. So the woman's brain keeps wanting more and more of the good stuff. That's what keeps you locked in. The same way people stay gambling.
Gotcha.
But you're going to lose. I mean, I don't gamble, but the people who do gamble, they ultimately, you win a bit, but on the long term, you lose a lot.
Right.
But it's done psychologically. The reward of that coin coming out is fantastic. And so you lose count of the number of coins you've lost. It's the same thing with this. One of the things is because you're nice and you're kind to me, but then you beat me up for 5-6 times and you're kind and nice to me again. Same thing. I'm waiting for the payout. He is nice. He's capable of being nice. And when he's nice, often here, when he's nice, he's really nice. And it's probably true. I don't think the guy is like faking, but okay, so that's one of the reasons that keep
almost
women
like that adrenaline, rush that you get.
No, it's the hope.
Oh, the hope.
Right? It's the living in the hope that we'll get more of that.
Gotcha.
So there's no relationship that's perfect. But on average, a relationship should be like not so good, 20% and 80% great. That's the whole point.
Right.
In a relationship, you're not in it to be miserable. But in these kinds of things, it's the other way around. It's maybe 80 miserable, 20% good. And a lot of women look forward to that 20% in the hope of increasing that percentage, that he will change. And when men are in that position, they often promise all kinds of things. And the truth is some men do change. So I don't accept the fact that the leopard can't change its spots. But you need help.
Of course.
But it's not the woman's job to fix you. There's a misconception that I'll fix him. No, you can't. He needs professional help.
So let's take that scenario where someone finds themselves in this position, that they are the abuser.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, it just happened. It's never happened before. It just happened. It's put now a challenge on the family to try and get past all of this.
Yeah.
How do you approach this type of healing process or change in the person?
Well, firstly, the man must come forward.
Acknowledge.
He's got to acknowledge and say. So let's say it's one off. Right? But still, he said, I've got a fright. I don't do such things. So I do have men that come forward for therapy and say, I don't know what happened. I just snapped. I'm ashamed.
Yeah.
And one can work with the person like that because they're coming forward and saying, it's happened. I don't know what happened. Can you help me?
Right.
Then there are others who it happens. They promise it happens again. And then maybe they come for couple therapy. So the man has to be open, okay, to recognizing. So a lot of men don't recognize their behavior as abusive.
Right.
And when you go to the history, it's because dad was like that. And the history from there is that grandpa was like that. So there's a long intergenerational thing. And somebody asked me one day, but is GBV a new thing? No, it isn't.
It's just
it's always been around.
A phrase
but it's more, no, it's more visible. Okay. We talk about shows like this. This was unheard of before.
Course,
you couldn't talk about
especially
this
in our community.
No,
as well.
Couldn't talk about it at all. You were sworn to secrecy. You never do it. You never talk out of the house. So in my opinion, professionally, I think GBV has always been around. It's more visible now. People talk about it. Radio shows, TV shows, talk shows coming on live to talk about it. So it's more visible. I don't think that it's more. I think it's just all pop. It's like holding a ball underwater. It's now popped to the surface.
Right.
So the man has to recognize that his behavior is problematic. If he doesn't recognize it, we're stuck. Because if he feels that, well, this is how I discipline my wife. And I had a man tell me that once. Don't get involved in my life. I said, no, I didn't come to you. You came to me. And he said, this is how I discipline my family. If my wife steps out of line, I slap her into shape.
Wow.
Okay. So a person like that can't be helped. Then one has to depend on the law, which in South Africa is not great. Conviction rates are very low for really violent perpetrators.
Sure.
And the only time you really read about it is when somebody's murdered his partner. Then the newspapers are on it, and then the person gets caught, and it's a big thing. And or the person's about to be caught, then he shoots himself. So
really sad stats coming out. Rafiq, we're going to continue over the next couple of weeks because this is a topic that needs to be spoken about, and our communities need to understand.
We'll talk about the hopeful stuff. So, I mean, today sounds quite pessimistic.
Of course.
But it's not.
Yeah.
But today we're
setting the tone.
We're setting the tone. But I want the viewers to understand that there is hope. There are ways. We'll talk next week about how to change attitudes, how to change how your brain deals with these things. So there's always hope.
Fantastic. Jazakallah so much. Have a wonderful evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
And that's how we end this week's edition of Mental Health Monday. We'll be back next week. Rafiq will be in studio to chat to us a bit more. But from all of us here in Cape Town, Sohail Barnes and myself, Luqmaan Shadrach, have a great evening. Assalamu alaikum.